Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you so much for inviting me here today, and it's a lovely place as well. So, firstly, I'd just like to say, just obviously I want to stick to the questions this time. How is a person born? Well, in this current life, because we believe in reincarnation, the Gurus explicitly say that, we believe in reincarnation. So before the soul comes into this body, the soul kind of chooses this body and the experience it's going to have in this life. So, in a way, the problems we have now, these are problems that we expected to encounter, and it was part of the soul's journey to learn. So if somebody's born, with say a disability, or somebody's born with a particularly troublesome, children, then you think that, well, maybe the point of that was to learn patience. You couldn't learn patience had you not been put into an environment where you had to be patient. So it's a lot of the things that we choose when we come into this world, the soul itself chooses this life, right? And so how is a person born? Well, again, the soul has chosen this life. The mother, when the baby's in the womb, then that baby is actually described in Gurbani as being sustained by remembering God. And the baby and the child, the soul that's in the baby and the Creator, God, they're having a conversation where the soul is promising, keep me alive whilst I'm in this womb. It's a dangerous place, every mother knows that. And they're always hoping that let them get through this 9 months and then come out. So through this time, let me sustain me, keep me alive. And the Guru is very explicit that God kept you alive there, because no one could have helped you at that point apart from God. So the soul is meditating and is praying to God, say, keep me alive. And it promises God, when I come out, I will continue to remember you and meditate upon your name. But as soon as it comes out, then that connection with the parents gets started, and very few people keep that connection going from there. It gets broken. And then our love starts to be to the mother, and then later on to our toys, and then our friends and our partner. And then as soon as so on and so forth, we forget the one that created us and the one that we came from, and we forget that truth that we came from before, that we actually chose to come into this life to connect to God. So the purpose of life, as I said before, was and is that we, whilst alive, experience God through meditation, through remembering God's name, through singing God's praises, through being a good person, serving other people. We start to connect and experience that divine whilst we're alive. It's a very blissful experience. It's called Anand, and that is the real purpose of this life. And the Guru is very clear that while we're here, they say the mother, there's many shabads about life and how it goes, different stages of life. There's many hymns about this. But they talk about how when the mother is so happy when the child is born, but she doesn't realize his life is shortening away. That every day he lives, it's not that he's getting bigger, it's that his life is getting shorter, there's less left to live. So the Guru is very clear that death is very much a part of life. So those who are born, they're doomed to die. Well, destined to die. Doomed is a pretty negative word. So I said destined to die. And the aim is to get out of both life and death. I.e. that when this body dies, that the soul then goes on to live in what people call heaven, or we call it Begumpura or Amarpuri. It's a place which is forever, where the soul doesn't have to come back into reincarnation, into this body again, and then lives in the presence of God and in the presence of other souls who've also achieved that aim of connecting to the divine. And then there's still more to go there. There's still much more spiritual development to be done in the next world. So this is kind of like a temporary place. We've come here really to remember the lesson we knew before when we were in the mother's womb, and then we forgot. And then we connect and we get to go past this stage into our next stage of development. So whilst we're here, aging is very much a part of life, and death is very much a part of life. But the only way to avoid a death that leads to rebirth is through meditation upon God's name and connecting and experiencing God whilst we're here. In terms of sickness and death, sickness more, mostly people will say sickness is negative. But the Guru doesn't call it a negative thing. What they describe it as, these are trials and tribulations of life in itself. So life involves getting old, life involves sickness, life involves all those things. And they say, in fact, it would be ridiculous to say, don't give me any sadness and give me only happiness. They say that in this world, we have two clothes. Like you have your clothes you're wearing today, tomorrow you take these off and you put on some new clothes. And then if you've only got two pairs of garments, and many people used to have in the old days, they will then wash that set one day, and the next day they'll put the new set back on. And what are these garments that we'll be wearing? Happiness and sadness. We're always wearing these. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes sad. So life is like this circle where we're going through these two things all the time. And how does one rise above these two? Through the connection with God, through that experience of the divine in the daily world, we can actually transcend both sadness and happiness. So the Guru describes this person who has transcended now through meditation, through purification of the soul, and who aligns himself or herself with God's will and tries to see the sweetness of God's will in everything. Then that person rises above, and they say things like, whatever you do is sweet to me. Oh God, whatever you do is sweet to me. And then this person Mara says, Jo nar dukh mein dukh mane, sukh saneho ar pehen jaake kanchan mati mane. They say that person who rises, who doesn't see sadness in sadness, doesn't have any sukh, any happiness, doesn't have any attachment, and then sees gold and dust to be the same. That's the kind of person the Guru is trying to create, because they end up having this samdrishti, which we call it, a way of looking at the world where everything is equal, where people are the same, good and bad are the same. The person rises up and sees all of this is a big game that God has created, because they're kind of like a programmer. Like a programmer sees a computer game, the person playing the game, they're very much attached to the game and what's happening to their character. But the programmer just sees options, endless options, and sees that there's a program made by something even bigger. Sees the bits, sees the zeros and the ones, and they rise above what we would call the kind of lower level of actually playing the game. So they see the strategic viewpoint. And what is the strategic viewpoint? Guru says that actually you are always doing good. Tum karo pala, hum palo na jane hai. Tum sada sada deyala. That you do good, but we don't know what is good. You're always compassionate and giving. So we're like children that don't realize what is good for us and what is bad for us. So we're so attached to this world. The minute we rise above it, the minute we start to meditate and realize that actually there's eternal bliss available at all times, day and night. There's happiness available all the time if you connect to God. Then that person no longer gets attached to this world so much. The good and the bad doesn't affect them so much. They sort of rise above it, and they have this umbrella. They're just walking through, and whether it's sunshine, whether it's rain, they're unaffected because they're living in their own little bubble of God's name. And then as they cruise through this world, nothing really affects them. But also, they're eternally happy. People sometimes hear about Sikhs talking about this idea of equipoise, of rising above good and bad, sadness and unhappiness. And they start thinking, oh, it must be very bland. Oh, sounds like there's nothing in it. It must be very boring, no happiness, no up, no down. But actually the Guru describes this state as the most deepest and most fulfilling state ever, because you're living in eternal joy that doesn't come and doesn't go. It stays. And this eternal joy, Guru describes this as Sadha Anand. Anand meaning bliss, Sadha meaning forever. And myself, I've been blessed to just have a peek into that world of bliss. And it's like a tap. You can turn on and it can turn off. You can turn on and it will turn off the minute you stop looking at it. So as long as you're looking and you're keeping your focus on God, that tap turns on. But the minute I take my focus off, that tap turns off. So the Guru is describing it as a person who then keeps their whole mind focused upon that consciousness of God. That bliss is always flowing, and after some time, if we keep ourselves there, then that tap stays on. And then the world will be, you're unaffected by this world. So yes, we have sickness, we have aging, we have death. This is just part of life. Okay, everybody who has come, Guru says, has to go. They even ask the question, who should I make friends with then? If everybody who's come has gone, who should I make friends with? They say, I'll make friends with you then, God. Because you will always be by my side. So we can't avoid it. There is no hope of living without aging and sickness in this life, but there is definitely a way of living as a soul without aging and sickness or death in the next life. And the way to do that is to start to experience that bliss here. What those people are there going to be experiencing, i.e. God and the presence of God, we can experience it here, and then therefore we've almost made our path already. So I'll finish off there. Thank you so much for your time. Apologies for any mistakes. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.